side, which is kind of new business development and outreach. So that's the group. That's the area right now that I am under, along with my former colleague Ornella Lepori, who works with the language indexing, and then we've had a few other team members, right, that are now on new teams. But then continuing to move on, after the quarter, right, we have the nickel. The nickel is what they're calling outreach, right, and new business development. So one of the key areas here for that group is to kind of start the helper network. In other words, like a family history researcher, genealogical researcher, right, helper. So it doesn't always mean, obviously, they're going to be, certified genealogists, but it's figuring out a way, right, where Family Search can help people, no matter what their family history question or genealogical research question is, right? There's a place in a way where they can get some coaching and some direction on that. So that'll be one, and that's kind of new, right? The Family Search has tried to do that in the past with some communities, some online communities. But it's always, research is always a bit of a challenge, and anyway, so that's something new and big that group will be working on, and I'm sure they'll be partnering, right, as some of the experiences come along, working with new pilot experiences, with the engineering team, and of course part of that, since they're called outreach, will be helping. Getting the message out there, whether that's through blog articles, whether that's through emails, whether that's new technologies like if some of you may have heard of WhatsApp. In Latin America, right, they tend to use email less than we do here in North America, but everybody's on WhatsApp. That's how they kind of communicate their awards and stakes in Latin America. So, some of these ideas of how do we reach people where they're at, right, and give them personalized, right, relevant messaging that helps them engage, right, in these wonderful experiences and gives them a desire to come back and do more. And then finally, the last group is kind of the groups, the functional groups that keep any organization going. So they'll have kind of HR, right, will be in that group, the finance group, for Family Search, the business intelligence group, so they do some of the reporting and the analytics. I'm trying to remember who else is in that group. But anyway, some of those kind of core functional groups that just keep the wheels of the organization moving along. So they're the dime. And, so it's a little bit of a smaller team, but just as important, obviously, as any of the other teams. Now, obviously, underlying this whole thing in Family Search, right, is church service missionaries, right? So without the missionaries, which vastly, right, outnumber the number of employees for Family Search would not be able to accomplish this mission. So it's thanks to you, each and every one of you, and your efforts, right, and all those hours unselfishly given, right, that really help this great work of salvation move forward. And so obviously we have missionaries, right, in every single one of those groups, helping things to move forward. And again, this work would not be moving forward without the efforts of the I think overall in Family Search, Sister Matthews, maybe you heard a more recent number, but I thought at one point a few years ago I'd heard like 5,000 total missionaries engaged in the work.
Never have heard a number.
I think it's roughly about that many. It's pretty amazing. Just working in some way, shape, or form with family history work and Family Search. So you're part of an amazing, wonderful heavenly army, right? That's helping enable our ancestors on the other side of the veil to have their temple work done. All right, that was much longer than I probably should have taken. I should probably give the time back over to Sister Matthews. Next time we meet in a couple of weeks too, I have some other interesting things I'd love to share. We just went to a volunteer training course, volunteer management training course for the state of Utah over the last couple of weeks, and they talked about some studies that have been done for volunteers, and of course we're working with indexing volunteers and particularly high volume, high contributing volunteers, and they had some really interesting suggestions, right, on how to work with those. And I think some things that are directly applicable, right, with how we will end up reaching out to these super high contributing volunteers. So we'll have some information with that, and probably some statistics too that I always like to share, so everybody can kind of see how the transition has gone from web indexing or desktop indexing to web indexing, and how we've gone through the summertime and how things start to ramp up in the fall, typically with indexing volunteers. So we can share some more of that as well. But anyway, just again, a thank you. Thank you so much. You've done amazing work, right? Over the last year, right? That you've been engaging and helping with these super indexers. I mean, you know it firsthand, right? You've spoken with these people, but there are so many people, right, that would not have been able to make it, right? I mean, indexing was their life, and they would not have been able to move over to web indexing, right, without your contact, without your assistance, without your help. And there's still, I know there's still a few people out there, right, that we haven't either been able to make contact with, right, or just through various circumstances, we haven't yet figured out how to get them over. But I'm sure the Lord, right, if they have a willing heart, will figure out a way to get us in contact with them, or vice versa. But anyway, just such a big thank you, right, on behalf of Family Search, but also on behalf of these volunteers, right, who essentially would have been missing a key thing in their life that brings the Spirit, the breathing of joy and happiness, and allows them to serve in the kingdom. So, all right, Sister Matthews, turn it back over to you.
Okay, so I'm sharing my screen to show you what Teams looks like, and this is a Microsoft program. And this is something that you're going to be invited to later when there's information here for you to see. I don't know if any of you have used it before. So you see it's a team called Indexing Account Management. And right now it's just me and Brett and Ornella. But later this will be a place that you come for information that will help you with your missionary work with the super indexers. For example, in the files section, we don't have a lot, but there's a couple of things going there. And so I'll be making new things for Salesforce as we use it differently when we figure out how we're using it differently. So right now there's just a couple of files there. And then I get back where I was.
You can click on the breadcrumb. Yeah.
The breadcrumb. What's the breadcrumb?
When you're down, sometimes there's a little...
Yes, yeah. Let's come back here. Let's come back to Salesforce and in contact. If I'm in that folder, where's the way to get back?
If you click on General, I believe, it'll take you back, or on the left-hand side, you can click back on General in that further left pane.
That did it.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then what do I have just in the Create a Desktop shortcut, the PDF there? Okay, so this will be a place that will have more to it. It's easy to use, and it's a way you can share files. Also, there can be conversations. I can't promise I'm going to pay any attention to the conversation.
Sister Matthews?
If you're desperate, is my cell phone, and otherwise my email. Go ahead.
Is this part of Salesforce?
No, this is a Windows. It's a Microsoft feature. Brett, can you explain what Teams is better?
Yes. So, some of you, let me share my screen really quickly for a second.
I'm looking for you to give you the ball.
Okay.
Chat's in the way. Okay, you've got it.
All right, I got it. All right. How many people have heard of Office 365? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes.
We have it whether we know it or not.
Yeah, that's what our Outlook and everything is.
Okay. So Office 365 really, so for those of you who use Microsoft in, like Microsoft Office in past lives, Microsoft has continued to evolve over the years, right? And in 15, 20 years ago, you would have had Microsoft Office, right, installed directly on your computer. You needed some disks, right? You would install it, right, and then everything you did was on your computer. It wasn't really shareable, right, by most other people unless you put put a file or a document, like a Word document or Excel document, in an email and send it to somebody. Well, as the internet, right, has continued to evolve, and as we've heard, we've all been exposed to this term, the cloud, right? The cloud now kind of allows us to share things online together. Now, the key is, right, then you have to be connected to the internet for it to really work. If you're not connected to the internet, it's not that you can't work on documents on your computer locally, but then it would have to be synced up, right, when you hook back up to the internet. So Office 365 really is Microsoft's effort, right, to bring not only kind of the old Office applications, which would have been Microsoft Word, Microsoft Access, Microsoft Excel, those types of applications, not only to bring those together and make them available online so you don't have to have the software installed directly on your computer, but other useful tools, right, that they've developed that went beyond Microsoft Office. So in today's world, and there's actually even quite a few more than this. I think there's probably, 30, 40, 50 different apps that Microsoft has. But at the church here, they've kind of, whittled it down so that we're not overwhelmed, right, by all of these different applications that can be used. And so if you have an Office 365 link, which I just have one on my browser toolbar, I use this all the time, and I'm using it. I've really started using. It was kind of new to me about a year and a half ago, and the more I use it, the more I like it, right? Because it kind of centralizes everything for me. Now, there's a few different applications here in Office 365. So one is essentially the mail program, Outlook, and some of you, may use that frequently. I know, missionaries sometimes do different things with different missionary teams, right? Some people are using kind of their family search email address and account quite extensively. Other times, right, people tend to be using their personal accounts, whatever system that's on as well. But Outlook, right, would allow you to get to your family search or LDS church account, email account, right, and look at that there. OneDrive is like an online place to save your files, and you can save those files right in kind of a personal space online, so nobody else can see those files, or you can essentially make those files be shared so that other people can get to them and open them and edit them and view them, etc. Okay, so now keep an eye on all of these pieces and parts, because as we get to the Teams icon, excuse me, let me get some water. As we get to the Teams icon, all of the functionality of these other apps, so Outlook or Word or Excel or OneDrive, they can be utilized within the Teams structure. All right, hold on, I'm going to try and take a drink of some water here. All right, hopefully that will help a little bit. All right, and then you have Word Online, Excel Online, PowerPoint. Most of you are familiar with that. OneNote. So some of you may have used Evernote or OneNote, other tools. This is really just a place to take and save notes. And I love it because, right, that means if I put it here instead of on my little sticky note, right, that I'm carrying around in my pocket, then I'm less likely to lose it if it's on here centralized and I can get to it anytime, any place. And so OneNote is kind of a note-taking feature. SharePoint and Teams are kind of the same thing, except SharePoint, right, you need some back-end IT help, right, to set up a SharePoint site, and it's a little more rigid and it's not as flexible. Whereas Teams, anybody can set up a Teams site, and then essentially you manage the Teams site yourself. You don't need IT help, and so that's why we're looking at kind of using this or testing this, right, as we go forward with the super index or account management. And finally, Yammer, of course, is the kind of like the Facebook, right, of the Microsoft world here, where teams can have communities and people can get together. So we have an indexing consultant community that's on Yammer. It's actually moving to a different place soon, but then we also have some language communities. So all of these things, right, can then be used within Teams. So if I go into Teams, I go into the team structure. The team structure is really just a place, right, where we can collaborate. right? That's the bottom line. You just think of it as, the town square. Like, it's a place where we can all go and collaborate. And we can even collaborate, right, if we're not all hanging out in the town square at the same time, because we kind of can leave each other, messages, or we can pick up documents. All right, this is a little slow loading. But I just want to make one other key point, and then I'll turn it back over to Sister Matthews. All right, come on.